Listeners probably wouldn't peg me as a pleather pant wearer.
Not just pleather, but blue.
Shiny blue pleather pants. And they just caught my eye. And I thought, oh no, I mean, I really want them.
Totally talking yourself out of it.
Really?
Coming up with all of the reasons why not to.
There's still that part of me that hangs somewhere in me that's like, get the pants, get the pants.
It's really a story about empowerment of doing what you want to do. When we learn that it's not that big a deal, we're making it a big deal. When we remove that weight and we remove that judgment and it's not a big deal, then it's easier to just screw it and just do it.
Screw it. Screw what everyone thinks. Wear them out.
Yes.
Wear them
yes.
only. Who cares?
And honestly, we might think people care about what we're doing, and it turns out people don't even care what we're doing. And so now we're putting even more weight on it. And
okay, so you get up and you embarrass yourself in front of some people and like you're a bad singer, or you split your pleather pants, or maybe it doesn't fit, or you look great.
Screw it. Just do it.
It's not a big deal. Welcome to Simply Enough. This is Zachary and Elizabeth, and thanks for tuning in.
If you're liking our podcast, we'd love it if you'd share with your friends and family.
And then rate and review to raise our visibility and spread the message of enoughness.
We love you, and remember, you are simply enough.
Just as you are.
Period.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Simply Enough. I'm Mr. Zachary Leonard.
And I'm Dr. Elizabeth Ignacio.
Listeners, I have to say, we tend to have an idea of the topics that we're going to share when we record, and sometimes little curveballs happen. And I think you've heard us speak about them openly, where I just in the On Brand episode, Elizabeth, Dr. Ignacio said, I'm just going to kind of surprise Zachary with this one, where we just like take a risk and we just jump out there and see, and we go with what we're thinking or feeling. And we had a plan for today. And I came into our pregame sesh, if you will, and I was just not feeling it. Right. And lovely Dr. Ignacio was like, okay, well, let's pivot and let's see what we can do. And as we were brainstorming different topics, I have to be honest that this phrase just kind of kept coming to my mind. And I threw it out there, and Elizabeth, God love you, you were like, okay, let's go with it. And then as we start to just like pull it apart, there's actually a lot of really, really good meat here. So I'm excited to jump into this today. And that phrase was screw it. Mm-hmm. Just screw it. So let me use a story to kind of kick off what I mean by screw it. I was studying abroad in London, which I've talked about, in previous stories. And in one particular moment while I was studying abroad, I went to like an outdoor market, and I had just lost a bunch of weight and was feeling a little bit better about myself physically, health-wise, everything. And I also was now in a big city, a lot more independent. And at this outdoor market, they have all kinds of cool stuff, including like kind of crazy-ish clothes, like pleather pants. Okay. Now, listeners and viewers and Dr. Ignacio probably wouldn't peg me, to go back to our On Brand episode, as a pleather pant wearer. Probably not. I wouldn't say that I was a pleather pant wearer either. But for whatever reason, these like blue pants were just kind of talking. Not
just pleather, but blue.
Blue pleather. Shiny blue pleather pants. And they just caught my eye. And I thought, oh no. I mean, I kind of really want them, but like, when would I wear them? And how often would I get to use them? And I can't even imagine, like, if I brought these home to California and showed them to my parents, like what they would say. I just like all the things. I just am like, is this really a smart purchase in terms of spending my money and whatnot? And
you're totally talking yourself out of it.
Totally.
Coming up with all of the reasons why not to.
Yep. And yet there's still that part of me, that little like hangs somewhere in me that's like, get the pants, Yeah. You want the pants. You look good in the pants.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So I bought the pants.
Yay.
But that wasn't the screw it moment, right?
Oh.
Because I had to wear them out. Like, that was the whole point of getting them. So getting them was like, okay, I crossed that one threshold, but like, they're going to sit in my closet. I'm never going to wear them and whatnot. The more like they kind of sat on the shelf, and the more I'm in London, and I'm thinking like, this is ridiculous. Like, you bought them because you wanted them. You bought them because you thought that they would, that you would look good in them, and that like, that'd be a part of your personality that like you don't show often, but that does exist. And so you gotta wear them. I was putting that on myself. Like, you got them for a reason. No, I can't. Like, it literally was like the devil was on one side and the angel was on the other. Right. Although, I don't know who would be fighting for which side.
I was going to say, which one is which, right?
I think it was like a week before we left the program. We were all going out together. My roommate at the time, just this awesome guy who I'm still friends with, was like, fuck it. Sorry, excuse me. Was like, screw it. You bought the pants. They look great on you. Wear them out.
Yes.
Wear them out. Screw it. Screw what everyone thinks. Screw, maybe you only wear them once. Who cares? You bought them. You bought them because it was a part of you that you wanted to put out there. Yes. Just do it, to Nike's slogan. Yes. Just do it. And he was right. So I put on the pants, right? And I just felt so freaking good. I was like feeling myself. It was a good vibe. And just that feeling of like lightness, energy. And I was smiling and happy and just thrilled the whole time that I had those pants on. We had a great time. We went out together, dancing and everything. It was a lot of fun. Fast forward, I came back home, and then I took my pants with me to Notre Dame thinking, okay, there'll probably be some like costume party or something, that I can wear them as like a joke, right? Not realizing that like a couple months later, the same roommate was going out to like a club in the city and said, you should wear the pants. Like, you should do this. Like, you loved, like, let's go out. Let's do this. And again, that like, the inner saboteur was like, no, this is more of a conservative town than, big city London. Like, what happens if, all these ways to talk myself out. And he goes, but wait, let's just stop for a second. How did you feel when you put them on? It's like, I felt great.
And who is this friend and how can we get him on our podcast? I'm sorry, continue. Go ahead.
Shout out to Medieval Marty. That's what I call him, Medieval Marty. Because he's right. And there was that moment of just like, fuck it. I am not going to let the inner voices, and I'm also not going to over prioritize other people's opinions or my beliefs about what their opinions are at the cost of what I want for myself. And he was absolutely right. And I mean, the sad part about it is I ended up losing so much weight, the pants didn't fit anymore. And so like, I know, which is a bummer, a good way, but a bummer. But it truly was a moment of like letting go. And thanks to him, he gave me that permission of letting go of all of the distractions, all the noise in my brain to have clarity of understanding of like, this is what I want to do. This is really what I want to do. So screw it. Fuck it. Go for it.
Yes, I love it. And it's just so funny because there's just so many things that came up as you were telling this fabulous story. And do you still have, even though they don't fit you, where are the pants?
Oh, I got rid of them. But
did you? Okay.
Yeah.
And understandable because
I bought other things because of that, like other things that I thought, oh, those
because of that liberating thing.
Yes. Yes.
I giggle because I just can't help but think of this book series novel that then turned into the movie, The Sisterhood of Traveling Pants or something like that, or Traveling Sisterhood of the Pants or something like that, and how there's so much meaning in the pants. And there's a lot of meaning in the pants in that story. And there's a lot of meaning of the pants of your story and how it, was kind of the launching pad to you buying other things and wearing other things. Not that this is about fashion. It's really a story about, coming to, one's sense of not just style, but empowerment of, going with and doing what you want to do. Anyway, that was a lot of verbal diarrhea with no point. What I wanted to say that really was pinging as you're telling the story is that very moment when you were talking about, I had a devil on one shoulder and I had an angel on the other shoulder. And you and I both were like, and which one was which? Yeah. And then literally right after that comment of my mouth came out, which was like, which one was which? As you were telling the story, I almost kind of like slapped myself in thinking, what kind of stupid question was that? And it was a stupid question, which one was which? Because why is there a devil or an angel side to it anyway? Why are we putting such heavy meaning of do it, wear it versus, do it, or, don't do it, don't wear it. It's not that big a deal. So even more so when it's not that big of a deal, yet we're making it a big deal. When we learn that it's not that big a deal, that there is no devil on one shoulder and angel on the other, when we remove that weight and we remove that judgment and it's not a big deal, then it's easier to just screw it and just do it. Right?
Yeah. And as I've shared in a previous episode, the moment when I was in that karaoke contest and I was really in my feels about performing and singing and being in front of everybody, there really was that moment of just like, let it go. Like, let it, just, and go do it. Like, just step into it. So yes, almost like it's not a big deal. Like, it really isn't. Okay, so you get up and you embarrass yourself in front of some people and like you're a bad singer, or you split your pleather pants, or maybe it doesn't fit, or you look great. It's not that big of a deal. It's not that big of a deal.
I'm sorry. I'm only also laughing because when you just said let it go, and I mean, come on, listeners and viewers, who did not in their head, for those who might, work with kids or have kids, who did not think of the song Let It Go from Frozen? And I can't help but laugh because what has been showing up a lot as a meme in like a lot of Facebook, like women's groups and moms groups that I'm a part of, is there's this meme of the clip of the video of Let It Go when Elsa is singing, but what she's singing is, their usual lyrics are "Let it go, let it go,
can't hold it back anymore."
Yeah, there, okay, let it go, let it go, can't. Well, so this new meme is "Let it go, let it go." I don't give a fuck anymore, and it's fantastic, and it's all about like things that you do as a mom or as a woman in business, and it's just let it go, let it go. I don't give a fuck anymore, and that's a more graphic way of saying screw it. But it's just as valid, with or without the F-bomb, that sentiment of screw it, just do it. It doesn't have to be a big deal. You don't have to care as much as you've been caring. Yeah. And honestly, we might think people care about what we're doing, and it turns out people don't even care what we're doing. And so now we're putting even more weight on it, and nobody gives a fuck about what we're doing. So there's just so much weight and baggage when we kind of implode and make decisions based on what our inner saboteur is saying, or our inner saboteur's voice is really mimicking the external voices that we have heard or that we're imagining we're hearing from, the external making judgments on us.
Well, and it's happened to us specifically regarding the podcast, where early on, we wanted to make sure that we were doing right by our rating and thinking about the language that we use. And so then we were so careful to not use the kind of language that we're using right now, because, we wanted to make sure that we didn't have an explicit rating, or that people thought that we were blank, 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 blank because we used certain language or didn't use certain language. And we were so busy, or we spent so much time and energy curating who we were, at I think sometimes a cost to what we wanted to say or how we wanted to say it, that would have truly the most impact with what we were trying to say. And now we in this episode are literally doing what we're hoping to do, just say, fuck it. Like, we are people, very educated people, who also use curse words, and we're okay with that.
Well, and Tony Robbins, and it's so funny, so many people like hold Tony Robbins, who, for those who don't know, he's a very, very successful inspirational, motivational speaker. And, people look up to him, hold him on a platform, because, his story is compelling, and the way he delivers his story and lessons and pulls out of you how you look at your own life story. He's just very compelling. And that's why he's very successful. And people like hang on his words and quote him all the time and use, daily quotes from him and that kind of stuff. So here he's beloved and revered. And he himself says, I purposefully use and drop the F-bomb because that's how I get my audience's attention sometimes. So he is actually very mindful and very purposeful. And here people hang on his every word. And so it's just funny how the double, triple standard, or however you want to call it, the standard that we hold to people and hold to ourselves, thinking that, the use of profanity now is an all-encompassing definition of one's identity of, low class, gutter, yes. Ghetto kind of character, when I want everybody to word. It's an expression. Now, if I say it, every other word in a sentence,
Right.
then that becomes a statement on my lack of vocabulary or imagination. But in and of itself, it's not all defining. So sometimes when we put such weight on the occasional need or feeling of the need to drop, an F-bomb, what's the big deal?
Mm-hmm.
And here's the irony. Will Smith, I remember listening years ago, like a decade ago, how he never uses profanity. And it is because his grandmother, and I love the lesson. That's why I remember this interview. And I admired the grandmother because he said, my grandma always told me that I'm smarter than that. And so if I have to use profanity, then that means that I'm not smart enough to use smarter words. And so I learned and cultivated that I never need to use, profanity. Okay. Who's the one that dropped all the F-bombs and then threw a punch at the Oscars, last year? So that's where I'm just kind of like, okay, there's the facade or there's the persona one wants to portray versus what is the reality. And the irony is, had he not stood on such a high pedestal of like, I never curse, then I don't think that the fall from grace, mind you, there was also physical violence there too. Don't get me wrong, but the fall from grace would not be as great, right? Because holding oneself, with this persona versus the fact that, okay, drop some F-bombs, show some anger without violence, everybody. That's where, we use the word a lot of, authenticity, but that's inauthentic in creating a persona. And that's why, that I love this. There's a cook, a chef who I love, Ina Garten, Barefoot Contessa, and she is fabulous. And she uses that word all the time. And she's just so much fun. And she's simple, casual, elegant. And her recipes are casual and elegant. And her TV show is always all about like what's an easy party. And she lives life in the Hamptons and everything looks so fabulous. And she's kind of like a simpler Martha Stewart, if you will. So I just loved her so much. And then when she was on when she was being interviewed just a couple months ago by 60 Minutes, and the interviewer was asking her in 60 Minutes, like, so, your recipes are not very specific. I know that you work hard to create your recipe, but then you mentioned even during your TV show, this is my recipe, but if you want to do this, or if you want to throw in a little bit of that, you can do it. How do you feel after the fact that you work so hard, meticulously creating a recipe? And I just love it because here's Ina Garten, on national TV, 60 Minutes. She's like, well, I just know that, I like to do what I want and you can do whatever the fuck you want. And they bleeped out the F-bomb, but beyond a shadow of a doubt, that's what she said. And instantaneously, I was like, oh, Ina Garten just dropped the F-bomb. And then the very next instant, I was like, I love her more. She's that much more real. Right?
Yes. And wait,
Screw
what did you
it.
say?
Fuck it. Just do it. Like that's a mantra I think we all can kind of incorporate in our lives just a little bit more.
Absolutely. And you hit on something that I wanted to bring up. So what did she say? I do what I want and you do what you want. Something like that?
Something along those lines. Yeah.
Okay. And to just spin it's no big deal a little bit on its head, I would say, in line with what Ina Garten said, if the pattern of, getting so like caught up with what ifs and other people's thinking and feeling and at a point of denying what feels right for you, it does become a big deal, because it becomes a big deal that you are not choosing yourself. You are not doing what you want. So yes, it is a big deal, but the big deal is because you're not pointing the finger back at you. You're too much pointing the finger back at somebody else. And you know what I mean? And so it really isn't a big deal if we think about other people's reactions or feelings, because chances are they didn't care that I wore the pleather pants. Like most people probably don't care that we use the language that we use. In fact, they probably appreciate it because they're like, that maybe helps them, etc. But I know myself, if I constantly choose something that goes contrary to what I want, it does become a big deal. And then things could happen. And I'm not saying that I'm going to turn violent and go punch somebody on national television like Will Smith did, but look what happened. The constant suppression of what felt authentic for himself bubbled up into, as one possible reason or factor, what happened, where there was just so much that was compounded that needed to go somewhere. So it does become a big deal.
I'm so glad that you brought it, because I went on this like verbal diarrhea diatribe that I didn't even say the other thing that came up as you were telling your story. So one part was, the devil and the angel on each shoulder, and really they're not even there, everybody. Not. It's not that big a deal. It's not this like moral decision. So there's that. But then the other thing that was just like ringing as you're telling your story was, had you kept, without ever wearing them, had you kept the blue pleather pants in your closet, guess what? Those pleather pants would just serve as a constant reminder of wasted money because you bought them, but you're not wearing them. And then that little inner GPS voice telling you, well, you bought them and now you're not wearing them. What'd you buy them for? And then it actually is a negative reminder, as opposed to, at best, a source of joy wearing it, and at moderate end of the spectrum, which is, it's no big deal. So, I mean, you can go the spectrum of like it being a negative, a reminder that you can't wear it and you shouldn't wear it and you wasted your money because you bought it and you're not wearing it. So that's a negative. Yeah. Then the neutral is just like, what's the big deal? I'm going to wear it. Big deal. To even if you do wear it and it brings you joy, you're on the opposite end of the spectrum. How fabulous is that?
Yes. And I will say now, again, to not make this episode all about fashion and whatnot, I do have another story that correlates exactly with what you're saying, which is after completing my job in Hawaii and needing to move to Chicago, I decided I wanted to dye my hair, and I wanted to see what I look like with like platinum white hair. Right. And I didn't want to do the whole thing. I just wanted to do the top of it. And, we have the same hairstylist in Hawaii.
Yay.
So
Hello,
I went to Uncle Sean and he did a fantastic job. Well, fast forward to when I went to Chicago, I needed to get a new license. And of course, now my hair is starting to grow out a little bit. So there are a little bit of roots and everything, but my license picture is of me with white hair. And without fail, I will get carded or go somewhere where they need to see my ID, and somebody will say something like, "Whoa, what happened with the photo?"
No.
And sure. But to your point about the pants serving as a reminder, I light up. I'm like, oh no, that was a super fun time when I just wanted to see what I look like. I don't know if I would ever do it again, but this is now memorialized. That moment of saying, fuck it, is now memorialized, not in pants, but in photo form. And somebody who gets to like critique me like, well, that doesn't look good on you. Or like, wow, that was a bad decision. Then I get to reframe it for them and say, no, this actually was a moment that I am so glad is captured. And I get to revisit often because I got to say, fuck it, it's hair. I got to dye it, and I'm blessed that I have hair, right? Which I couldn't be. So I'm going to appreciate it. Knock on wood. Hope I don't lose my hair tomorrow. But to your point, the pants could have served as a reminder in one regard, and they didn't. They actually served a reminder in another, in the same way that photo of me with the white hair serves to say, like, one, it wasn't a big deal.
Yes.
And two, it was a big deal because it marked a moment when I was like, fuck it, I'm going to stop being handcuffed or shackled, self-imposed about what others are going to think. And I am going to do what I want, to Ina Garten's point, of what I like, what I enjoy, or what I think would be best.
Yes. The hair itself wasn't a big deal, but the decision and the action upon it, that was the big deal. And that's something that you can carry forward with you. The hair comes and goes, right? But that moment of your deciding to do something, that is what is the big deal.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
It's so funny too. I just heard this. I was listening to a sermon actually this morning, and it was talking about running your own race and, being, who are you answerable to when you make decisions and that kind of stuff. And I remember the pastor said this, which is, when we're in our 20s, we care so much what other people think about us. When we're in our 40s, we start to not care what other people think about us. When we're in our 60s, we realize nobody cared and nobody thought about us. And so why make a big deal out of it? And there is actually truth to it, where we're imagining what people are thinking or saying. And in fairness, I don't want to minimize that when we are adolescents, people will be saying things and thinking things and caring in a negative way what we're doing. And so for any of our young listeners, this is not at all to deny those feelings that you're having in terms of, especially now with social media, that you're bombarded with this sense that, people do weigh in and people do judge and people do care and people are having thoughts about you. And if you can just, like we talked about in the previous episode about seasons and eras, just know that time will pass. Yeah. And with time and wisdom and your own sense of self, people aren't looking as much at us and people aren't caring as much about us and people aren't thinking so much about us because they've got their own things to care about. They've got their own things to think about. And so when we kind of release the big dealness about, like our other episode, who are the theys? What are they thinking about us? What are they saying about us? When we just kind of, let that go, life's just a little bit easier, and not just easier, happier.
Absolutely. I would add to that, there have been plenty of times, also being very honest, there have been plenty of times when I have made the decision not to do something because of others or the theys, and so going forward, that decision is still okay. I'm just going to go into that decision with a little bit more knowledge of how I'm accepting my own place in that decision, and then also letting that go so that it doesn't become something that I carry forward. And what I'll say is, and I'm going to use your example for this, if you don't mind, again, to come back to a fashion thing. In a previous episode, Dr. Ignacio, it might have been the Who Are the Theys episode. Dr. Ignacio talked about wearing red lipstick, right? You did. And then you're like, I'm going to go wear my red lipstick today. Obviously, you're not going to wear that every day. I wouldn't wear the pleather pants yet every day. We are not going to go out and use the language every day. And there will be times going forward where I know there will be that thing that like, oh, I really want to do that. And I decide not to. That is a singular moment in my mind going forward. That doesn't have to be what I do the next time. Or I can give myself permission and space and grace to say, I knowingly did that this time. And look at the second time or the next time that comes forward as just its own uniqueness, rather than to not now start to create a pattern of character or of behavior where I am overriding or I'm overriding my own thoughts or feelings, overemphasizing other people's opinions or the theys over mine. I'm saying this rather clunkily, but basically what I'm trying to say is it's okay if you decide not to do the thing.
Absolutely.
It's also okay to acknowledge that was a moment. It doesn't have to be a season.
Right. It's your showing up for yourself and being mindful and having the autonomy and ownership of the decision that you make. And also in giving yourself space and grace. So whether it's you're going to wear something or whether it's you're going to audition for something or whether it's you're going to apply for, a job or apply for a reach of a school or apply for, this interview, recognize too that it's okay. Give yourself space and compassion and recognize, do not wait till you are fearless. You don't have to wait until you are free of fear or free of that uncomfortable feeling. Be mindful and recognize that I'm feeling a little bit fearful, or I'm feeling a little bit anxious, or I'm feeling a little bit nervous. And then when you can kind of compartmentalize that, authenticate it and say, yeah, I am feeling it, but then recognize that's a feeling. Then with that feeling, you do it anyway. Screw it. You do it anyway. Right. That's courage. It's not being fearless. It's not waiting to the point where you're without fear, waiting to the point where your emotion is giving you permission. No, you can recognize your permission and then still screw it. Just do it anyway.
You made me think about when I was learning to ski. Later on in my life, the skiing was not something that we did as children, because it was just expensive and there were so many of us. But I took lessons later with with this older guy. We called him Krusty Larry. Krusty Larry was probably like 70 years old, and he'd wear the glasses and then the goggles, like, and then the sunglasses. Like he was fun. Larry was, but he was crusty. Krusty Larry gave us what I'd say is a pretty good life lesson, not always applicable in every situation, but there are times when you need speed. There are times when actually having speed works to your betterment and being slow and cautious doesn't. So in certain moments, I think not just in skiing, but in life, the fuck it attitude actually serves you and helps you. You're never going to get rid of the fear, but if you are bound by it, then yes, it's a detriment. Sometimes you do need that speed, that momentum to help you through something. And that actually is maybe a little disconcerting because you're going to feel a little bit out of control, but it actually is helpful. And you just made me think about that when you were talking about fear.
Oh my God, mind blown. I absolutely love that. This is going to be almost shocking for me to say this, considering that I'm a parent, but actually my kids can vouch for what I'm about to say, which is, in many ways, I see our youth, and whether it's, because of, I'll say it, because of their parenting or because of their schooling, where they are very permission based, and they're very quick to already assume that they can't do something, or they're not allowed to do something, or they're going to get in trouble, or they're going to be told no if they ask. And so they're very quick to be permission based and assume that permission is required. And that's even without getting the no yet. And this is where, like, I tell my own kids, I tell, student clients, I actually tell adult clients when they're like considering, making a big shift or a big move that their heart is really pulling them to do is, you don't always have to ask for permission, though you're assuming that you have to ask for permission. You don't always have to. And in fact, when I look back on my life and my, career, quote, successes or quote, career advances, or even just where I am and how I got to where I am, for whatever that's worth to whoever else is looking at me. But I got to where I got to by taking hold of any and every opportunity and possibility, as opposed to permission. There's something to be said about there's an opportunity there and there's a possibility there, and go for it. And you might be told no. I was told no many, many times. I was told can't many, many times. But I tried anyway. I said, screw it, do it anyway. And it was from those opportunities and possibilities that other future opportunities and possibilities came from, rather than kind of waiting for permission or assuming a no. Just do it anyway. And then if you get a no, then KNOW. Yeah. But you don't know, KNOW, if you're afraid of getting the no, NO. Does that make sense?
It does.
Despite the spelling.
Yeah. No. And I was told something similar. Let them tell you no. Don't tell yourself no before you've even tried. Yes.
And
it makes a lot of sense.
I love that. And a shout out to a rock and a mentor who's now the mayor of Honolulu, and he's a dear friend, but he's been a rock and a mentor and almost pretty much like family, actually, since I moved back to Hawaii. And he's gone very, very far in business. And so I, hung on many, a word of wisdom and advice that he's given me. And one of the things that keeps resonating, and I can hear his voice when he tells me this, is never get a no from somebody who can't say yes. Meaning, if you get a no from somebody from, say, middle management, and you just feel compelled and your gut is telling you, just try anyway, screw it, do it, ask anyway. Then if you get a no from somebody from, say, middle management, then you go up the ladder and see if you can get a yes from that person. Mm-hmm. Is that a tangent? I'm sorry.
No, it's spot on. Because I
never get a no from somebody who can't say yes.
It's so good and so spot on. And then to come back to where we started this episode, no one's going to tell you no about the pleather pants. No one's going to tell you no about the red lipstick except yourself. If you're going after a job or an audition or something like that where somebody would say no, okay, then there's a no, and you decide, is there another avenue, another place where I want to go? Do I really want to be an actor or an actress? Do I really want to go to a college? Okay, that's one no, but it's not all the no's, right? Mm-hmm. But in a subjective case like, do I dye my hair? The only person that's going to say no to you is yourself.
Mhm.
And remember, you are not just simply enough,
You are more than enough.
just as you are.
Period.
Period.
Mwah. Love
Mwah.
you.
Screw it.